Alright, and we're back. And I realized that the screencast website that I'm using only allows us to record 15 minutes at a time, so I'll try and make them quicker as far as lectures and screencasts goes. But anyway, we'll pick it up. We got to the Mayans, and again, we're talking about ancient cultures right now, early civilizations, and how they practiced astronomy and what astronomy looked like back then. So let's pick it up from the Mayans. I'll move this stuff out of the way here. Alright. So, there we go. Yucatan Peninsula, that's in Mexico. The Mayans, the dates, they were early, but not way back in BC times. Built a lot of structures to keep track. They really thought Venus was important, nearly as important as the sun, so they kept track of Venus a lot. Astronomy was very integrated into all aspects of life. Everyone who was a Mayan had a really detailed knowledge of the sky, much more so than the average person today. They would go to war or conduct different ceremonies based on the position or brightness of Venus. I wouldn't say thought it was maybe not more important than the sun, but probably at least as important, or if not just a little bit less important. But the point is they put a lot of value in Venus because it's the very brightest object next to the moon and the sun. When Venus is really bright, either in the early morning or late at night. I'm sorry, early morning or just after sunset, early evening, it's going to be really bright, especially if it's a clear night. So it's going to be strikingly bright in the sky, Venus would be. Timekeeping was really super important in the Mayan culture, and everybody knows about the 2012 December 21st or whatever it is prediction for the end of the world. That's not going to happen. However, the Mayans did make a calendar based on lots of different astronomical observations. They were just wiped out, though, before they could actually continue adding more days onto their calendar. So just like we start our calendar over when it gets to the end of the year and becomes January 1st, they do that too. It's just that they all kind of died out from disease from the Spanish invasions, that they weren't able to restart their calendar. So that's what happened there. So no, we won't die. The Dresden Codex is this really famous book type thing that had all of their observations in picture forms, kind of like hieroglyphs, but more think that ancient Latin culture pictures, kind of similar to ancient Chinese pictures, actually. Okay, here's some structures that the Mayans built that were related to astronomy. This was actually a game called Polk, and this was the arena that they played in. They had to get the ball to go through this little hoop, or push it to the either end of the playing field here in the center, and everybody who was watching was standing up here looking down into, so people would run up the sides and hit this rubber ball with their hips. They couldn't use their hands or feet, could only hit it off their hips, and this ball would soar around, and there were two teams trying to push the ball, kind of like rugby, try and get it to the end. But there really wasn't a whole lot of physical contact. If you won the game, then you weren't sacrificed as quickly, but if you lost, then they killed you and sacrificed you, and sometimes even if you won, you were also sacrificed. So a lot of times there was the prisoners playing this game while the higher-ups in the Mayan culture were just watching. Here is the temple of Kukulkan, and this is a very famous temple during the solstices, I believe, the shortest and longest days of the year. A dragon appears to slither down, and here's the head of the dragon, or serpent, sorry, on both staircases here. And people still go down and gather to watch this happen. You can YouTube videos for it if you want. It's pretty cool looking. But basically, these steps were designed to cast shadows on this straight edge here along this staircase. So when the sun's rays are coming in from the right and the shadows get cast like this, it appears like there's this serpent body slithering up the side. Really neat. Here's a picture of what I just talked about there. You got the sun coming in over here, and obviously people are getting very excited for the serpent. So here's the serpent head, and you see the snaking body going up the steps. So really, and this was designed by people thousands of years ago. Yeah, just imagine the kind of engineering it took to, first of all, get the dimensions of the steps right so that these perfect shadows would fall on this, build the whole entire temple oriented to a certain position in the sky. I mean, it was a massive undertaking. So the Mayan cultures, they were very, very great engineers, and also were very in tune with the sky and what it was doing. Even still today, when we know that different motions of the earth carry us out of sync with a lot of the old motions, it still works even today. So maybe come back in 20,000 years, maybe it won't work anymore due to different motions, Milankovitch cycles and whatnot, but still today it works, and you can go down and check this out. Here is a temple, more like an observatory that kept track of Venus's motion. Half of it's kind of destroyed, but you can see it would have been like one of those silo-type looking things. And it had these windows in here, and you look out the windows at certain times of the year, you can see Venus at certain positions. So this whole complex was dedicated to keeping track of Venus. Here's some tourists just kind of mulling around. The Incas were a lot like the Mayans, so they weren't as astronomically oriented. They were more war oriented. Incas, obviously, the whole Machu Picchu culture, they were tied into agriculture, keeping track of when to plant and harvest crops from the sky. Cusco was all laid out to mimic the sky. You might remember the word or the name Cusco, which was the original capital of Peru. So this is the western coast of South America. Cusco from Emperor's New Groove. That was a Disney cartoon, I believe. So that's where that took place. The Pleiades star cluster was pretty important. That signaled their new year, the Incas. Here is what is the new Christian church built by the Spanish conquistadors atop the old ruins, which would be the dark stones here, of the old sun-worshipping Incan culture. Would be an Incan big temple, or it was like the center of the worshipping that happened around the Incas. And the Incas still have tons of ruins all around. I mean, the Peruvian ruins are really spectacular to go see. I was lucky enough to kind of poke around this area for a few weeks and check out all the different ruins you can go see. Here's another would have been kind of like a silo type dome structure building where it has some small windows to look out. Ancient Babylonians, this is ancient Mesopotamia, so over in the Middle East. A lot of people think that this was the birthplace of civilization, and after we became more agriculturally based people, the nomadic people started settling this area. Sumerians, Babylonians, they created the first recorded constellations and stories and then passed them down to the Greeks, and we all know the Greeks were a very famous culture. They came up with the zodiac constellations. Those are the 12 constellations that are part of astrology and people associate with creating things to happen here on the earth. Now, astrology is something totally different from astronomy today, but way back in the day, ancient Babylonia, the Incas, the Mayas, this astronomy was still kind of tied to astrology, and they share very common roots, but nowadays we totally differentiate between the two. So the zodiac constellations were created by the Babylonians. There goes the school bell, so if you heard that. What else we got? Okay, again, agriculture, timekeeping, you kind of get a trend here. They also invented a lot of math, especially the degree system for use positions in the sky, and a Venus cycle. And I did it. Here's a cuneiform tablet, or cuneiform, I think it's cuneiform maybe. This is the tiny little, kind of like Sanskrit writing, and this tablet would be about the size of a credit card. And this has the original zodiac constellations written on it. I know it doesn't look like it, but that's what it is. These are the ziggurats. These are temples. There's not many ruins of these left. Obviously pretty impressive looking, kind of a complex structure, but this is the kind of temple that the Babylonians, and it's neat to see that a lot of cultures around the world all built these pyramid type structures. Some would say coincidence, some would say, common origin. A lot of theories out there. And of course, you got to associate the story of the Tower of Babel with the ancient Babylonians. A mythical tower that stretched very high up into the sky, where God came down and confused all of the languages to keep the people from building the tower any higher because it was getting too high and almost reaching heaven. Now that's a story, of course, but no one's ever found ruins of this mythical temple, but it's a really neat story to check out. A lot of artwork. So, summary of the ancient era. Astronomy, astrology, basically the same thing. Universe was viewed through a very religious, ceremonial tradition lens, but also tied into agriculture and planting and timekeeping. Only naked eye observations. We got gods and goddesses represented by things in the sky. Led to agriculture, further success of civilizations. All right, and we'll pick it up on the next one with the ancient Greeks.